The Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission of India to consider including Aadhaar cards, ration cards, and voter ID cards as part of valid certification to enable a person to vote in the upcoming Bihar elections. Although the Supreme Court did not pass instructions or orders to the Election Commission of India and left it to the EC's own wisdom, the court did question the timelines, the timing of the special revision of rules, as well as the practicality of some of the measures being proposed by the Election Commission. This, remember, has turned into a big political battle between the Modi government and the opposition. Rahul Gandhi has today alleged, to quote him, that there is an attempt to steal the election in Bihar, just as he argues the Maharashtra election was stolen. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. On the program today, we'll be looking at exactly what happened in the Supreme Court today when an urgent listing of the Bihar case was placed before the highest court of the land. The government and the opposition have been arguing politically, but the debate is really around the decision by the Election Commission of India to indulge in what's being called a special revision of roles. This exercise has declared that the Aadhaar card is not a proof of citizenship. Today, the Supreme Court had to deal with whether the Election Commission is the right body to decide that and what impact that might have on the upcoming elections. At one point, the judges observed in open court that given the immediacy with which these documents were being asked for, even the judges may not be able to produce the documents that the Election Commission was seeking. There will be another hearing of the matter before the publication of the first draft of the electoral rolls, but the Supreme Court did question the timing, the practicality, as well as the exclusion of the Aadhaar card and urged the Election Commission to consider the Aadhaar card, the voter ID card, and the ration card as a legitimate basis for people to vote. These developments, as Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, leader of the opposition, today made a contentious statement saying the Maharashtra election had been stolen and there was being an attempt to steal the election in Bihar. To talk about both the politics and the legality of what unfolded in the Supreme Court today, let me welcome our guests to the program today. Loknath Chatterjee is with us. He's a well-known lawyer. He's also somebody who has been associated with the BJP, but he's here today in his capacity as a lawyer. It's good to see you, Loknath. Also joining us is Sabha Naqvi, senior journalist and author. Always a pleasure, Sabha. And also joining us is Neha Rathi. Neha Rathi has been, in this case, the lawyer for both the Association of Democratic Reforms as well as TMC Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra. She's the advocate on record in the case. So Neha, it's really good to have you with us. And joining us also is Rajat Sethi, who's a political commentator and has been previously the advisor to the Manipur Chief Minister. It's good to see all of you. Let's get first comments. Neha, I'll start with you since you've actually been involved in arguing this case for the petitioners. Are you satisfied with what the Supreme Court said today? The Supreme Court did ask the Election Commission to include the Aadhaar, the voter ID, and the ration card, but it did not actually pass any orders or instructions. It did not stay the process. It did question the timelines. It did question the practicality. And at one point, one of the judges said, if you ask me to produce these documents, even I can't do this. As a lawyer for the petitioners, how do you see the significance of what happened in the court today? Because the court made a lot of important observations, but stopped short of a formal instruction.
See, of course, had there been a stay on the entire process, on the SIR process itself, nothing like it, because that is what we were aiming for. But still, I would say we are very satisfied because notice was issued to Election Commission of India, despite Election Commission repeatedly saying to the court that, no, we don't want to add Aadhaar or Epic card as valid proof. Supreme Court did go ahead and say to them that you need to use this. Even we would not be able to provide such documents. Especially the court noted that because the Representation of People Act 1950 itself recognizes Aadhaar, how is it that you are not recognizing it as valid proof of citizenship? It is not the job of the Election Commission to decide whether a person is a citizen or not. The Election Commission also, the only job is to ensure that the documents provided are correct, and those documents, whether or not that person has those documents, on the basis of which they should add those. So yes, we are very satisfied because these three documents, and we have got to know what is the what is working with the court, and court is actually positive towards it, and they have actually caught the issue which is at hand, the practical logistical issue, plus the legal points, which are the violations of the constitution, violation of the RP Act and the rules. So I think it's a very positive step, positive thing that came out of the court today.
But Neha, before I open this up, I know that it was debated in the Supreme Court who gets to decide who's a citizen or not. But if you do not get an actual instruction from the Supreme Court, right now the Supreme Court is urging the Election Commission to consider these as proofs of citizenship and allow the voting to take place. But if you do not get an actual intervention from the Supreme Court, what happens then?
I think it would be very difficult at this stage for the Election Commission of India to deny these documents, especially because the timeline is running out. You have to. The Supreme Court has deliberately. This is of very. This is very significant. The date of the next hearing is actually before the draft roll. They wanted to go ahead with it. They said, ECI said, let us see if we are able to do it. Supreme Court said, no, we'll do a detailed hearing before the date of the draft electoral roll. That date is 1st August. The date they have given deliberate is 28th July. So they will decide the entire issue on that date. So that no date, no name is deleted out of the electoral roll.
Okay, I think that sets the framework for what we're talking about quite clearly, Loknath. There is one legal question: who decides citizenship in the Supreme Court? The petitioners argued, Neha's side argued that it can't be the Election Commission. The Supreme Court seemed much more concerned with the timelines. They were like, okay, you want to revise the rules, great. Why are you doing it just before an election? And I think that's the layperson question that everybody would ask. As a lawyer, how do you see the questions?
So I'll tell you, these questions can be asked at any point of time. The problem with Indian democracy is that elections are always somewhere or the other. We have elections, happening continuously. So what is important to be considered here is the integrity of the electoral roll. Now, if the integrity of the electoral roll is in question, and in fact, under the Representation of People Act 1950, the Election Commission is mandated to ensure Section 16, Section 21, disqualifications for registration in an electoral roll, who can be electors. So, what is of primary importance is that, that every eligible citizen is enrolled and that no one is excluded. No ineligible voter should remain on the rolls, and then to eliminate dead, people who've shifted, absentee voters. So the democracy is premised on this basis that, we don't have ghost voters voting in elections. I mean, I come from a state like Bengal, so where we have these problems galore. So, it's been happening from the left times. There's been this accusation off and on. So what is important is and last happened for Bihar happened in 2003. So that is the base. And in fact, even the political parties and election commission will be having the booth level officers. The political parties will be having the booth level agents. So under the Constitution, Article 324, Section 1621 of the Representation of People Act 1950 and the other provisions, Election Commission has to do it. Now you can question it regarding timeline, you can question, the timing of it at any point of time. But what is important is that I take it in a different manner. Since elections are coming, it is all the more important that this exercise should be completed, and this exercise should ensure that there are people who are eligible to vote are there on the rolls, people who are ineligible should be removed from the rolls. So therefore, this timeline, rather I take it in a different way. Yeah.
Okay, Neha, just a second. Let me just get our other two guests in and then I'll come to you. Rajat, okay, elections are happening all the time in the country, but, it's led to a political row as well. Rahul Gandhi made a statement in the last 24 hours saying that Maharashtra was stolen. Now there's an attempt to steal Bihar. Of course, this is the BJP will argue this is the Election Commission. It's between the EC and the court. It has nothing to do with politics, but the politics are inevitable. How do you see what's happened? Do you think to say to people right before an election, your Aadhaar card is not a basis to identify you as an Indian citizen, when an Aadhaar is needed almost for everything, some might then say, what is the purpose of the Aadhaar? It was meant to be the ultimate digital sort of proof of digital identity.
So two things. A, Rahul Gandhi, the less I say, the better it is. If you look at Rahul Gandhi's party's own track record when they were in power in UPA time, and you look at the number of voters that increased between those same, the assembly election and the Lok Sabha election, that delta, if you actually check back in 2008, 2009, around that time, it is the same quantum. So I don't know where this data and who's feeding Rahul Gandhi with these crazy ideas. Has he proven anything in black and white? And if he hasn't proven anything, this is all political rhetoric, which should be thrown away in the dustbin. when it comes to intellectual questions and intellectual debates. If he has genuine substantive proofs and evidences, he can actually go and knock the doors of the Supreme Court as and when he deems fit. And I think then we should have that conversation about this gentleman. Now, coming to election commission per se. See, I have served in the northeastern regions. I can tell you there are literally shops which make Aadhaar card. Therefore, Aadhaar card cannot automatically become routes for citizenship. We have seen that there are other ways in which district magistrate is trying to control the rollouts of these Aadhaar cards on certain very sensitive areas, especially the border areas. There is absolutely, not just cross-border migration, illegal migration, but also this rampant practice which was put in place at a time when India wanted Aadhaar cards to be rolled out at scale. There has to be greater controls now, and that is missing right now. In fact, there are certain Naga areas, and I can put it on record and tell you, cows and buffaloes also have Aadhaar card, and they also go out and vote. This is the state of affairs right now. In this digital day and age, you cannot question the election commission who wants to go out and look for revised and cleaned up data, because data changes all the time. There are, migrants. Bihar is a special state because there is so much of migrant labor which leaves the state. You don't even know if they are there, sitting there, living there or not anymore. And I don't go by what BJP and the BJP supporters are also saying. If they say that certain areas in Mithilanchal have 126% Aadhaar card being distributed, you haven't done the census yet. How do you know if it is 126% or extra Aadhaar being sent, or is it not proportional to the changed population or the demographics? That number is also not there. So I believe let us trust a constitutional body. Don't put acid onto the roots of a constitutional body like an election commission. It's a body which has a lot of institutional memory. You don't question them about scale because they conduct world's biggest democracy elections year over year, round the year, every 5 years. They do it at scale, which is unparalleled. So before we question and come up with ex-ante assumptions, we should look into the capacity that this organization has. It can do.
What do you mean by cows and buffaloes have Aadhaar cards?
Yes,
I mean,
I'm telling you that
is this an ironic comment?
No, I'm telling you, goats also.
To make a point. What is your point?
Well, what I'm saying is that there are certain areas where election commission has not been able to go and do those scanning that is required. These intensive, readjustments on the voter list is required, and they're not able to do that because these are very, very remote areas infected by insurgency and all of those things. This is a matter of fact. And I'm telling you this, therefore, in this day and age, we need to come to some level of sanity checks onto our voter list. And now you need to decide, do you want to do a Bihar level sanity check 5 years before? Or do you want to do it around the corner when the voter ID requests are coming into the election commission, when the voter rolls are being prepared? I believe this is the absolute perfect time to do it. Is Aadhaar the best document? No. But right now, we don't have any alternate ways to distinguish between citizenship and Aadhaar. So maybe this is a fail-safe sort of a temporary measure, but you cannot equate Aadhaar with citizenship. That is an underlying thing.
Let me bring in Sabha on this. I think the Supreme Court will have to take the ultimate decision on this. They have not stopped the exercise, but they have questioned its timing and its practicality. Both Rajat and Loknath have a very different view that election ke time hi to aap revise karenge aur kab karenge. The Supreme Court says that it should have been done well before. And why only for the poll-bound state? If there is to be a national exercise, let it be done nationally. It doesn't have to coincide with the election. How do you see the developments in the Supreme Court today? And how do you see Rahul Gandhi basically questioning the electoral process and saying the Maharashtra election was stolen, the Bihar election, he's casting a shadow on it, the Bihar election could be stolen as well. These are his words, not mine. Sabha.
First of all, I think it's the job of every journalist and anyone who cares about democracy to keep the institutions that safeguard democracy on their toes. There was a ridiculous list of proof that was required to prove your citizenship. That list smacked. Now we all know that our institutions are captured by people from a certain section of society, be it the judiciary, be it the bureaucracy. It is so, in spite of reservation. That list demanded that that list gave priority to property, educational requirements, and did not accept what the ordinary person has with them. Now, having reported a lot out of Bihar over the years and done stories on migration, which you have also done, do you think that a worker who's coming to Delhi and working in some field somewhere is going to go and get those documents. I don't have those documents, of course. I mean, I have other. You think my parents' birth certificates? It was a Kafka's nightmare that was being unleashed before the people. And this is for the poor. It was anti-poor. It was anti-people. And the job of every democracy is not efficiency and high tech. It is to ensure that the most vulnerable sections of society find their representation. We all know who goes out and votes. It's the poor who vote. Every data shows you that. Middle classes vote less. People, the poorer they are, it is the one power they have. We have not given them education. We have not given them public health. We are privatizing. We have given them nothing. What we have given them is something glorious in India. Glorious. And come out for that in election after election. It is the vote. So anyone who tries to make voting an exercise which is going to completely confuse masses of Indians, you have not done in Bihar or in Uttar Pradesh what you may have achieved in Tamil Nadu. Sure, try that. Go to the southern states, and even then you will have objections. This was an offensive list that the Election Commission came out with, and this is not the last of it. There is a clear bias. Who's going to have property? These are landless labor. I have seen bonded labor in Champaran in Bihar, where they get rice even today. That is the region we're talking about, but forget Bihar. That should apply. India is full of poverty. India is full of people who are unlettered, and to ask them for documents. I have had a woman, I've written a column about her, with me for 26 years. And today with a phone, she has a phone. She is terrified of the banking system. I will be going when she retires to Jharkhand to make sure that she's not ripped off. She does not know what KYC is. So
why do you think, since you're accusing...
And then give me lectures. And by the way, Barkha, let's do one exercise in a very small state. Let's do it in Manipur. Let's do a survey. Let's send everyone out there. Let's count the people. Let's do it. Let's do it in Manipur. Instead of insulting people in Nagaland and saying they're cows and buffaloes or anywhere else in India, do it in Manipur. It's under central government rule. Do it there.
Okay, let me get Rajat to respond. Can I ask you, Sabha?
Madam, let me tell you, the Nagas don't just reside in Nagaland. Nagas reside in other places also. And I was mentioning about other places, not about Nagaland.
Okay.
Good. Thank you,
Look,
Rajat.
at the heart of the political question, before I come back to the lawyers, and I'll ask Sabha to give a 10-second and then Rajat can respond. You are saying it reeks of bias. So are you saying the Election Commission is biased, Sabha?
Of course. If the Election Commission, I'm not saying an institution is biased. Will I say the Supreme Court is biased? Will I say the government of India is biased? No. I will expect the best. But I will know my rights, and I will encourage people to know their rights, and they should not. It is your job in the vision of our constitution to enable the poor to vote, not to confuse them and not to disenfranchise them. And by the way, allies, if you start making the calls, Barkha, many NDA allies are also spooked by this. But they don't, because they're completely captured now. I mean, it's their fault.
Rajat, there is a huge amount of debate raised by the opposition now in the Supreme Court over roles, not over voting machines, not over everyone's right to a vote, but over these roles. And as I mentioned, Mr. Gandhi raised this in the context of Maharashtra. You said put what he says in the dustbin. All right. But the Supreme Court has questioned a few things, right? One of the judges said today in open court, if you ask me to produce some of these documents, I won't be able to produce them quickly. This is by a Supreme Court judge.
Again, I don't very respectfully what the respectable, honorable Supreme Court justice is saying. He wouldn't have been in that job if he doesn't have those documents. Okay, so let's be a little practical about what.
I think he was being rhetorical.
Rhetoric is one side. Don't take it as verbatim. You're trying to pivot that as a verbatim statement of the Supreme Court justice. That's untrue.
No, I'm not. But I'm saying the Supreme Court has some questions about what the EC is doing. You agree? It has some questions. It has some disagreements, and it seems to believe, though it has stopped short of any instruction, that As of now, given the timelines, the Aadhaar should be included as a basis to vote. This is what I have picked up from reading the Supreme Court observations. You
All
agree?
right. So
Sorry,
two things.
everyone
Not
trying to
just
say
Aadhaar,
something.
it's also a card given by the Election Commission itself.
Yes, yes. Voter
If you
ID
want to
card,
be shocking
Aadhaar.
is, they didn't
Three
want the
things.
Election Commission card to be used.
Three things.
They
Three
didn't
things.
want the
Aadhaar,
ration card to
ration
be
card.
used.
Yeah,
So it's
okay, Rajat, go ahead.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Okay, Rajat, yeah.
It's three
So
things.
11 ID cards that Election Commission had put forth, plus Election Commission's Epic card, plus Aadhaar card, all of those things have to be kept in mind. Also, keep in mind we're talking about Bihar, where there is a migrant labor situation, where people have migrated. Several of them over these past couple of decades have moved permanently out of Bihar. Also, they might still have those voter cards not being struck out. This exercise of cleanup happens all the time. There are two aspects of it. Is the exercise per se illegal, wrong? The Supreme Court did not say that. The process should include certain additional ID cards, because it was the submission from the Election Commission's lawyer itself. They said that these 11 ID cards are not exhaustive in nature, and they would include these extra additional ID cards as well. This was the inference that was drawn in by the Supreme Court justices. Now, here I personally feel that right around the corner, you cannot solve this meta question that citizenship is not equal to Aadhaar or Aadhaar is not equal to citizenship. This is a broader debate that we need to have in this country, and Election Commission is ill-equipped to solve this question. But I don't go by this argument that, okay, oh, poor, let me be patronizing, oh my God, poor people don't have documentation. That is a very, very poor splaining kind of an attitude. India, for a fairly long time, over the past decade or so, has mastered direct cash transfers, has mastered ID-based account opening, has mastered all of these things.
Through Aadhaar.
You cannot. Fair enough, madam. Through
Aadhaar.
Aadhaar.
You're also getting caught.
Fair enough.
I mean,
Can I butt in?
Okay, 1 minute. Let Rajat just make his point.
Sending out is all through Aadhaar.
Okay, one at a time.
My last
please.
intervention on this, that as I said, let us not try and be too patronizing towards the poor that way, because you're trying to create you try to create North versus South out here in this debate. You want to create a class war out here. Let us shy away from that. Documents are needed in a democracy, in a surviving democracy, where you do not hijack the process and do not have very predictable reaction. I have seen in the country for the past 5 years, whenever it comes to documentation, these are similar set of voices who come up again and again against this core concept. You need identification wherever you are at every turn of our lives. That's how we are.
Okay, let's get the lawyers in. Rajat, I know you have to step off a few minutes earlier, so whenever you need to, thank you. Let me bring in Loknath and Neha now. Loknath, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick thing, as far as the Aadhaar debate is concerned, this was settled quite some time back. February 18, 2020, the government and the UIDAI, the authority for Aadhaar, had categorically stated Aadhaar and, it's not a proof of citizenship, which also includes the PAN card. And in fact, if you look at it, Aadhaar can also be obtained by a foreign national who stayed in India for more than 182 days. Aadhaar card is also given to children below 18 years. So children below 5 years are given Bal Aadhaar cards. From 5 years to 18 years, they are also issued Aadhaar cards. So definitely they don't become eligible as, voters in that sense. So therefore, considering Aadhaar for that purpose may not be suitable enough. Aadhaar at best is a document or is a form of identity, but not a proof of citizenship. Just like, for example, your name in the municipal assessment rolls does not make you an owner of the property. So, similar, if I can draw a similar analogy here.
Okay.
And to quickly indicate, the list of...
But Loknath, I think the question is, should that question be resolved right before an election? Okay, there is a larger debate over the...
Absolutely, it should be. I mean, this is the right time for it. Because as Rajat also pointed out, this is the time when people become active with their voter IDs and all of it. So, of course, and ECI has to, coordinate elections across the country for, so many states. So this is definitely, timing cannot be an issue. If there are inherent problems in the process, which also includes the kind of documents, which again, these 11 documents are not exhaustive.
Let Neha respond to that. Neha, some very specific legal technical points have been made as well, apart from the political debate. Aadhaar can be given to children under 18. Aadhaar is given to foreigners under some circumstances. You cannot equate it with citizenship. What is the central argument that is being made by your side, which is the side of the petitioners, that is against this revision of roles at this point?
See, none of the petitions, the prayer is that Aadhaar should be allowed. We actually believe that even if Aadhaar is allowed, it is going to lead to disenfranchisement of a lot of people. The point is, let's not reduce it to just whether it's the case was not about allowing Aadhaar. It is about the fact that this can leave out a lot of people who have actually participated in elections, in 5 assembly elections, 5 general elections in Bihar and in the country. How can you just de novo start an exercise, delete all the electoral roll which is in place right now? In fact, in 2025 January, the June order mentions that the updated list in Bihar is as on 7th January 2025, which has since then been updated. So till June 25, we have an updated list. As per CEO Bihar, their press release is in front of me. 4 lakh names were already deleted in the last exercise between October to January. So that means that this kind of an exercise, deletion of names, people who have migrated and all, it's not as if an updated list is not there. A list is there as on June. An electoral roll is there as on June 2025. That is why the court asked, what is the need to have this process being done right before the election without giving anybody any idea? The other thing is that the question of Aadhaar actually came in because this is one document that generally is believed, and that's what is the report from the ground people do have. Aadhaar was not the only thing. We would have been very upset if it was just Aadhaar. Aadhaar, ration card, epic card. The ECI had no response why its own card issued by themselves is not accepted by it. There's absolutely no argument on that. I agree, Aadhaar is not the whole and soul of citizenship. That's all right. That's not the point we are making. But it is not ECI's job too. The court was very categorical. It is not ECI's job to check citizenship. Secondly, any exercise, we did not challenge. We did not say the exercise is illegal. It is provided for under the rules. But there is a manner to doing something. There's a reasonable, proper manner to doing
So
something.
for you, the essence of this fight is the exclusion of voters, right?
Yes.
That is what it is. And I think that's where, Rajat, I want you to respond. You see, on the one hand, we have campaigns running by the EC, get the vote out. People must vote. It is a fundamental duty to vote, right? Here, the lawyer for the petitioners is arguing that this is not about Aadhaar or no Aadhaar. Even cards and identification issued by the Election Commission itself today are being challenged. And this could lead potentially to the exclusion of people who've been voting in their areas for years, if not decades. Please respond, Rajat Sethi.
That's a laughable assertion. Now you are yourself saying, okay, I'm doing an SIR, okay, which is a deep cleanup on the voter list. Now you say, no, I just voted in January month, so please include it. So what's the purpose? Then you can as well as start off with the existing voter list itself. So you need to ascertain why is the SIR process initiated this de novo. You can question, is the de novo process in itself unconstitutional? Then you can go to the Supreme Court to scrap the entire process. Now you're not going after that. You're saying the epic card which the voter has used just now should be eligible. If that is eligible, you can as well say that the entire voting list is eligible. Then why do this exercise? So there are circular recursive logic, and you need to apply some mind to understand what is the rationale behind why Election Commission is saying what it is saying.
So what is your answer? Your answer is what, Rajat? Before
my answer is that Election Commission is, as I said in my opening remark also, how do you navigate through the broader question around Aadhaar and the problems with Aadhaar that creep in? Election Commission doesn't have the bandwidth to solve that problem. Therefore, there has to be a broader discussion around how do you clean up these voter
What
lists.
is the appropriate time for that broader discussion?
Around the election itself. It is this time when these discussions should happen.
Okay,
and I believe people should go about and have detailed conversation on this. Because clearly there is something which is flawed in our voter list. Something has to be done. You cannot say that, okay, you just voted and therefore that epic card you can
fair question. Let me put that to Sabha. Sabha, let me add a question.
One thing, I find it...
Sabha, 1 minute, just half a second. The question here is, if you're going to say this gentleman or this lady just voted 5 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, then by definition, Rajat says you can't have a cleanup because you're doing the cleanup to see if there's anything fuzzy in these lists. So you can't
So
quote the
listen,
past
listen,
rule.
listen,
Go ahead.
go ahead. You will declare half the citizens of Bihar to be Farzi. Let's be clear. If you don't accept their Aadhaar and you don't accept their election
Cannot have
commission
this
card, they will.
conversation only like
Please let me finish, Rajat. I have done a lot of ground reporting. I know you've been on the ground in the Northeast, and I've done a lot of it. And I can even tell you how voting lists are made. I've written about this, how names are excluded, how they're included. That is also the fight. These are technical things. You want to know about BLOs, party agents. We can have that discussion, but this is not the time. Let me be very clear. The kind of documentation that this absurd order of the election commission has asked for would disenfranchise most Indians in a state like Bihar. They would have no property. Let's go through the list. If we have the time, let's go one by one by one by one. So we can't just keep saying, and provide people with education, provide them with schools, provide their children with a decent, with make sure they're not born malnourished, do all that, and then talk about this grand, efficient AI generated exercise. You have spent money, you've made people go through Aadhaar. So if you want to just have scrutinies of citizenship, sure, you are doing it in Assam, you can try and do that, but in Bihar, it's about poverty. It is about poverty, and let's be very, and people will not be able to qualify. Even the NDA's own allies are a little concerned right now. There are certain equations there. They are worried. People
Okay.
will be
How
upset.
do you respond, Sabha, very briefly? I have to take last comments from all of you. How do you respond to what the EC is saying that you have to clean up the rolls? How do you respond to that? When you take it back to
Can
poverty,
I
are
be
we
very
saying,
sarcastic? Can I be?
huh?
Is the EC is the EC when you say clean up the rolls? What are you? It sounds a bit derogatory, no? It sounds. What does he mean? I mean, are the people on the rolls who have voted 5 times? What
Okay,
is
let
he going to
Loknath
have a
respond to
role?
that.
Is he going to have a
Okay,
role of people property classes who have
Loknath,
educational
respond to that.
qualifications? What level of
Loknath?
Bihar has?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
am
I
ready
just
to
come in.
have an argument with the election commissioner himself
Okay,
on this.
Loknath.
I have no,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know.
this is a necessary thing. Under the law, they are mandated to do summary revisions as well as intensive
Yeah,
revisions.
sure.
And integrity of the electoral roll is of primary importance. We can debate on the kind of documents and the kind of identification processes which can be, applied and used, but never on the question of maintaining the integrity process of the rolls itself, because that is, central to the integrity of the democratic process. Definitely poverty and other issues are there, they are important, but then at the same point of time, if we have to ensure the democracy is really sustained, we will have to ensure integrity of the electoral rolls. We've seen the kind of problems like in a border state like Bengal. I will definitely not want the other states to face these kind of problems. In fact, dead people have voted in elections. How come this is happening? So definitely, to some extent, in some manner, there are ways and methods in which people have bypassed the usual process. So therefore, these kind of springtime cleanups are necessary.
Neha, respond to this point. We've heard maybe extreme examples from Rajat and Loknath, but there are examples. Dead people have voted. Somebody who's not alive is registered as a voter. As in cows and buffaloes have Aadhaar cards. Okay, I take your point that it's not only about Aadhaar, it's about inclusion and exclusion. It's about the right to vote for every citizen of India, right? That is what this debate is about. But how do you respond to the other side's argument that you do need that vote to be genuine? I think that's the only point, that vote has to be genuinely exercised.
Absolutely, and we have no problem with that. It's nobody's case that electoral list should be updated. That is my point. It is being updated. For such an exercise to take place in a poll-bound state in such close proximity is only and only going to remove people from lists which they have already, voted, relying upon. There is absolutely no argument that EC has with regard to this. Roles are updated, they should be updated. As I said, 4 lakh were deleted right now, and there is a process to everything. There is an act in place, there are rules in place. There is rule 21A which talks about deletion, how that has to take place. There has to be a hearing given to that person. So why is all that being given a go by in this hurried up exercise? And it is also very surprising that at the end of May, the EC, with much fanfare, said with the new EC 100 days, with the new Chief Election Commissioner, 21 new initiatives we have worked on. Not a whisper of such a big exercise. there seems something strange about it.
Okay.
That suddenly it is sprung upon people, and people who are out of state, for example, people are out of the country for 3 months, they can't come back, there are temporary migrants, they can't just come back or they lose their livelihood, or otherwise you just stand to get deleted from the role. It's
Let
nobody's
me
point that the role should not be updated.
And
There's
it
a
is
means
your
and method.
belief, before I get Sabha and Rajat to come in with quick last words, Neha, as a lawyer in the case, it is your belief that before the publication of the rolls, you believe that the EC will take a cue from the Supreme Court observations?
I'm absolutely positive, because the Supreme Court said you may take a call, you should consider these three things. But if you don't include, you have to give reasons for it. It would be very difficult for Election Commission to come up with reasons why Aadhaar, Epic, Ration, all are not allowed, when the
Okay.
Aadhaar Act, Section 23, itself talks about Aadhaar, Form 6B itself talks about Aadhaar and other documents as well.
Unfortunately, I've got just a minute left. I'll give 30 seconds to Sabha and 30 seconds to Rajat. Sabha, go ahead.
Just the speed with which the election commission suddenly wanted to do this huge exercise, it's unfair on people. Let me not be content. It's just unfair. How can you do this to people? How will they get all those documents? Of course, we need revisions of electoral rolls. But what is this? How do you treat people like this? How does the bureaucracy ask people to just jump and produce documents like this? It's not fair, Barkha. That's actually my main point. Huh?
Rajat, the vote, what makes us what we are is that the vote is an equal right, and we always hope an equal duty. I think the critics of what's happening argue that it's exclusionary in even if not in intent and execution. How do you respond to that?
Well, Aadhaar came in 2009. Was it the case that before 2009 only zamindars were voting in our country? Because the landed people and the property holders were only voting. Was that the case? Of course not. There is no class question in this entire discussion. And all that I'm hearing in this from the other camp is suppositions, assumptions, ex ante assumptions without the premise. They are saying that the election commission is not going to finish this exercise in time. This is a hurried thing. They will not be able to do this exercise. I mean, where is that data where you are able to come out and confidently make this assertion? This is the Elections Commission's job. If they're not able to update it, they will have to extend the voting by the due time. That is their responsibility. We have this giant machinery which is fed because of taxpayers' money to do this job, and they will do this job. If they don't do this job, you can again go out and knock on the doors of the Supreme Court. My problem is that there are a lot of suppositions which have gone into the narrative building, and it is largely political in nature, largely instinctive in nature. Anything to do with documentation, the same cabal has an issue. That कागज नहीं दिखाएंगे, घूम फिर के राजनीति इसी पे आनी है कि कागज नहीं दिखाएंगे भाई इस देश में. लेकिन हाँ, लाइन में लगेंगे, वीजा किसी और देश में जाना होगा तो सारे कागज दिखाएंगे, बैंक के भी स्टेटमेंट दिखाएंगे, शेंजन वीजा के लिए सब कुछ करेंगे, लेकिन देश में वोटिंग के लिए नहीं दिखाएंगे. अब यही चलना है तो फिर चल सकता है. These are all rhetorical questions.
Okay, we will leave it there. We're just saying that this rhetoric, I think Sabha saying something. Sabha, you're on mute. Can we unmute Sabha?
यार ये voting list की बात है. That's all, Rajat. In fact, you're mixing up the rhetoric of Shaheen Bagh, CA protest. थोड़ा सा हम लोग सब जो debates पे जाते हैं ना, इसलिए मैंने कम कर दिया दिमाग हम लोग का.
Okay, like I said, this rhetoric is definitely going to play out whichever side of the debate you're on in these Bihar elections. It has become a political issue unless the Supreme Court is able to settle it legally, which would be very interesting to watch at its next hearing. Neha, are you trying to say something?
Not only Bihar, very soon they are going to roll out for Bengal and other states as well. The order itself says the idea is to do it pan-India. But the manner is very questionable. Yeah.
So it will be very interesting, as I said, and important, not just interesting, but important as to what the Supreme Court decides. We leave it there for now. Rajat, Sethi, Sabha Naqvi, to Loknath Chatterjee and Neha Rathi, thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you and see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.